Hello everyone and welcome to the Graveyard Shift where your nightmares become a reality. I'm your host Max Keller Halls and today we have, again, another packed room. And for the fourth time in a row, we have...
What's up, Kris? Ayo.
And for his third time on the show, we have...
Zack, what's up?
I think this is also my third time on the show.
Okay, yeah, your third time.
Katie.
Second.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've only been here twice. Yeah. Okay, yeah. We have a fun topic today. We're going to be talking about slasher movies to end off our 4-part special for this Halloween. And, yeah, how about we kick this off with talking about what I deem the granddaddy, or at least the father figure. We're going to be talking about Halloween, and then we're going to be basically talking about pretty much most of the Halloween films, not all of them, but pretty much the new Blumhouse trilogy. To start off, we're going to be talking about the 1978 original Halloween, starring Jamie Lee, directed by John Carpenter, and what really, we're just going to make this like a 2-minute conversation in that this movie is pretty much a classic. Like, it's really good. The tension is great. Michael Myers is, of course, like the classic slasher. Him and his William Shatner mask and
I don't like it.
the mask.
The whole thing.
You what?
I don't like Halloween.
Why?
It's so boring.
What?
It really isn't.
It's
Nothing
not.
happens until we're like an hour in.
It sets up tension.
The tension's bad.
What?
Tension is not bad.
You don't
I
like
like
Lori?
it.
Lies.
You don't like Lori?
I never
The
said I didn't
blasphemy.
like Lori. I can just dislike. Classic doesn't mean good. It just means classic. And I would say that Halloween is a classic that is not good.
Well.
I like the beginning. That shit's really scary. And then after that, I'm
So
just like,
you mean like the whole tracking shot through the house?
yeah. And then they're like, Michael, what have you done? Like, that got me. That's pretty good. And then after that, I'm just like, nah.
It's a fair assessment.
It's fair, but
it's-
like
I
just have to disagree with you.
Yeah.
Like
You and everybody else, get in line.
I know.
I actually kind of agree with her. I don't think it's that great.
No.
I don't think it's bad, though.
I've never watched it. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I think it's okay. I think it's it's not S tier, but it's not B tier. I think it's like A tier.
Okay.
I feel like nostalgia
Like
gives
low
it most
A tier.
of its reputation because
Yeah.
it's probably the entry point for almost everybody to horror in general.
Yeah.
Fair.
Like, your parents went, oh man, I remember when Halloween came out. You should watch it. It's such a good movie. So you end up watching it. It's the same way that like people get into Star Trek or Star Wars. They're like, man, I remember when this came out in the theater. I'm going to show my kids.
Yeah.
And then you end up finding something, and then you go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I appreciate the beginnings of the Scream Queen genre and the Final Girl? Yes.
Yes,
But
and Lori
otherwise-
is like the
final
one of
girl.
the best final girls.
Yeah.
It's
And-
just like, I don't know. He's a
Yeah.
guy.
Well, actually, I have to disagree with you. I like that they kind of make him this like.
Personification of evil.
That's the
Yeah.
problem, is he's just a guy that doesn't die, and it makes no sense. There's no reason why he doesn't die.
Okay.
Well, in the non-Blumhouse canon and
Oh,
the non-Rob Zombie canon, there's reasons given, but
We don't talk about those.
we don't
We're
talk
not talking
about
about
those.
those.
We
Isn't
Has
that the
to
one
be
where him
canon.
and Lori are like siblings?
Yeah. Number 2 sets up the idea that
They're
okay,
related.
yeah, they are related, and then going forward, most of the movies went off that lore about they are related, they are brother and sister.
Blumhouse completely cut that.
Okay, I guess this is a fair way to like transition
Yeah.
into like the newer 2018 Halloween, which I kind of hate that title. Where I
Yeah.
hate these
The
requels, the newest entry in a franchise where it pretty much ignores everything else and just goes off the first movie.
And then it keeps the same
It
name,
keeps the
too.
same name.
It's like, why?
We're gonna talk about another one that did that recently, where I'm just like, can you just like call it something else?
Yeah.
Like at least maybe Halloween H40. I don't know.
There's a
Just
song
Why are
that's
you
on,
serious?
like,
It's not
H2O.
H40.
Well,
Come
'cause
on.
there
It's
was a
technically H40.
Well, there was a Halloween that was called the Halloween H2O.
I know. And it's a dumb name.
I feel like Halloween suffers from that kind of, we talked about it in a previous episode that you should watch, where we,
Thank you.
we're talking about like how some of the like the Conjuring things, like sometimes they lose their uniqueness or what's interesting about them because they try to do the same thing 6 times. And
Yeah,
Halloween does the exact same thing 6 times or more. So like, if it was a standalone movie, I think you can make a better case for it being better than it actually is. But the fact that they just remade him in like from space to 40 years later.
He didn't go to space.
Michael
whatever.
doesn't go to space.
Michael
Yeah.
doesn't go to
There's
space.
a different slasher we'll talk
Okay.
about later.
Yeah.
That goes to
I
space.
miss.
There's a space.
But I think that goes to the almost the forgettableness about the fact that they're just doing the same thing 6 times.
Well,
is that it's just there.
I might want to have you hold on to that thought, especially with these movies, because
Yeah,
we'll get into that.
they're different. To me, they're different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the same thing over and over. Like, the base premise is the same thing over and over, and that's Michael Myers getting pissed off at someone and going,
But the genuine like character interactions, especially with getting back on track, the Halloween 2018
yeah.
actually could have been just called the Halloween.
Mhm.
What I like about this one is it genuinely goes into the idea of like trauma.
Yeah, what
With
it means
Laurie.
to survive what Laurie survived and having to deal with that and probably not having the greatest support system
No.
around. And so the Laurie we see in Halloween 2018, I'm going to keep calling it that, is a Laurie that is very different from the first Halloween.
Very well, not only in
Not
age,
me,
but still.
it's a very, she's got a completely different temperament. She's
Mhm.
been through a lot. She's had a complete, she's like completely shut herself off from society. And, that,
And her family.
and that, yeah, that includes her family, which in this continuity, she has a daughter.
And then her daughter
Daughter
has
has
a
a daughter.
has a daughter, so
She's
she
got
is a grandmother.
Yeah. And she's estranged from her daughter because her daughter was taken away from her.
Yep.
That was how bad it got.
Mhm.
And her granddaughter is like the only one who's not really that estranged. But
No, yeah,
That's-
her granddaughter wants to still have a relationship with her grandmother, and her grandmother is still kind of in the picture in that like
she pops up every once in a while to go, here, take some money that I've just earned from doing a podcast
yeah.
with these weirdos to help with your education. And then like
Yeah, because all podcasters are weirdos. Moving on. Also, I think what I like about this one is Michael.
Yeah.
I really like this interpretation of Michael.
He's
Now,
my second favorite interpretation.
apart from the first one,
I'd put him in the first one at the same level. My favorite kind of interpretation of Michael is the Rob Zombie Michael Myers,
really,
which I know is maybe
that's okay. That's a controversial opinion.
controversial opinion. I just think, I don't know.
You like the giant hulking Michael Myers?
Because he's the most like shit yourself scary Michael Myers. 'Cause
Yeah, that's
that is,
fair.
he's a huge Michael Myers.
Yeah, they got like a pro wrestler
It's
or
like
like some pro wrestler to
wrestler
like
and-
play him.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I like about this interpretation of Michael, even though like you really have to suspend your disbelief, like isn't he 60?
Yeah. He's
Well-
like 60, maybe going into the 70 range.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Laurie Strode also kind of up there now?
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
All
in
the
that
love to
she's
Jamie Lee though.
yeah,
Yeah,
all the
I
love to
love
Jamie
Jamie
Lee.
Lee.
But in the movie, they say like she's been like training and like with guns and everything like that. She's been like making herself into a weapon.
She
Michael
literally
has
turned
been
her house into a booby trap.
yeah. Michael has been like
In a prison.
in a prison, standing there
Yeah.
for decades. No,
That's what I mean. Is he's just a guy,
I know,
and they
but
just
like
make him seem like he's more than that.
I like in this one because going forward in this trilogy, I don't like what they do. But in this movie, I just like the idea of like, yeah, he'll like take shots, but like he's so insane that like
Yeah.
pain is nothing to him.
He's like one of those guys that just runs on pure adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then once that adrenaline rushes off,
Like
he'll,
he
like,
get, like you
collapse.
kind of get the idea like he gets a high off
Yeah.
killing people.
People-
That's why he does it.
or at least like attempting to kill people. And,
Like this
getting
movie
them to
has
fight
one of
back.
my favorite scenes, and like it's just him going from house to house, just
Just
nonchalantly
just, like,
killing people, and it's
you're in
scary as
there.
hell because of
Yeah.
just how easy he
does
goes
it,
about doing
yeah.
it. Because it's like, all right, just be quiet, just go to the garage, grab a hammer, go in through the back door,
Don't mind
kill
fighting.
her, go out the front door. It's Halloween. I'm wearing a mask.
Nice.
No one really cares. Go
Yeah.
to the next house. It's really creepy in that idea of like,
I
Hey,
kind of
he can just pop into your house.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Katie. I think actually the bad part of the movie is the fact that he's just plot armor protected from all destruction, and he really is a dude. Like, more often than not, you can keep counterpointing and splitting hairs on
No,
it,
no,
but
no,
there's
no.
like 10 movies you're choosing from.
yes,
Most
I
of them
agree.
is plot armor for
I-
most of it.
I agree with that for the upcoming movies we're about to talk about, because then it gets
It's really
ridiculous of what he survives through. But in this movie, some of the injuries, like, they're not as life-threatening as
they
they are in
normally.
these newer ones, where it's like
I don't
in
know.
this one he takes a shot to the shoulder, where I'm like, okay, movie-wise that is like,
I feel like in the past shows we've had, we've judged the series more than the entry. And in this case, I would say that is more
Okay,
common
fair.
than less common in the series.
okay,
And that is what bugs me personally about it, is that I know what I'm going to watch exactly, almost, with maybe some nuance, but it's going to be him doing some crazy plot armor stuff, killing a bunch of people that probably are in the same archetype as the original, and then there's going to be some continuation. We're going to have another movie that's going to do the same thing. That's what I feel. I feel like it's overly predictable. There's nothing new and refreshing that's brought too much, in my opinion. And I think that's just why I also just don't enjoy it.
wow, I think you just said my entire review for Halloween Kills, which we're about to talk about, because that is pretty much my problem with the movie. It is just more of the same. Some real, admittedly, really cool kills.
Yeah.
However,
I mean, it's Halloween Kills. If
I know.
when I went into the theater, when
You
I
saw it
paid
in
for my
theaters?
ticket, I saw it in theater.
I saw this one on Peacock. I saw the
Oh,
new one
okay.
in theaters, but
So
okay.
I saw this one on theaters, and I'm like, it's called Halloween Kills.
Quills?
Quills. I'm going in there to see Michael Myers fuck up a bunch of people, and that's what I saw. And I was like, okay, I'm
Fair.
happy. That's usually what I go in expecting with Halloween. It's like
I know.
it's Michael Myers killing a bunch of people
Uh-huh.
with the occasional benefit of building on some of his victims, who they
Yeah.
are, how they've been affected by him. That's a little bonus for me.
What I liked about the first one in this trilogy was that they still did that, but they still gave really good character
Yeah.
nuances. And I
Yeah.
felt like with this movie,
They didn't.
they
really.
didn't do any of
Yeah.
that, and they just
Yeah.
focused on the
Yeah.
kills, which again, they're really cool. But when
But-
you have like dumb as hell,
Characters.
these are the dumbest
Characters.
characters ever.
I was
Like-
this might be a spoiler, but I was so wrecked with what they did to Tommy Doyle.
That was
I feel
dumb
like it's
as
different
hell.
because Halloween Kills has been out. Like if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that character, the nurse or the
Yeah, it was the nurse. It
the
was
nurse one was the dumbest
It was-
because like he is right there. You have a gun.
Okay.
Stop
So
wasting your bullets
bullets.
on shooting the the car light.
Like,
The car. And then all he has to do is kick the door down. It hits the gun,
And it
spins in her
just-
hand, and shoots her in the head. I'm like,
yeah.
get
Oh,
the fuck out
yeah,
of
that
here.
Kill, I was like,
It really reminded me of like a machete movie, only in the fact that not only is it called like Halloween Kills, Machete Kills. I thought that was like a weird way to
Yeah.
name the movie, but still, I was like,
So with the new ones, it goes Halloween, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. But Halloween Kills, it's my least favorite out of these new movies. I guess it's not really a
Yeah.
spoiler for a review of this new one, but I just wasn't a huge fan of it. I just kind of was throughout the movie. I was like, oh, that's a cool kill. I love seeing the practical effects. I love
Yeah.
seeing all that stuff. I love that these. I'll say this for this trilogy. I love that they pretty much use perfect blend of practical and using CG to
CGI.
kind of help
Yeah.
advance things like CGI knife stabs so that you can actually get.
just enhance it. They didn't
Yeah.
go overboard.
They didn't go overboard. I like that.
And I know, as controversial as it is, the scene where he's just going wailing on the firefighters, I really.
I thought that was cool because
That was
I
very
like that it was a slasher fight scene in a way.
Very much. So.
Where it's just
It was
like, what if like a bunch of people who could fuck up like a ghost face killer had to go up against Michael. I thought that was cool, and like him just like finding like. Okay, to be fair, there are some moments where I'm like, why don't you all just gang up on him at once?
Which
They do, but
but
going back to Zack's point of plot armor,
He-
that was the
plot
moment I
armor.
was like, so he's just supernatural, which
Yeah.
then kind of just loses it for me because I'm like, that's not scary to me because the idea of this guy who's just insane going around killing people is much scarier to me than just
supernatural.
the idea that the more he kills, the stronger he gets. I was like, the whole movie like doesn't want to go full into supernatural.
But it
So they're
ends
just
up-
teetering on the edge. So the entire time you're like, okay, so is he or isn't he?
Yeah.
And then it's just, it really pisses me off. I don't like the ending of the movie. And
I
then
didn't like that what they did with Laurie's daughter.
I thought that shit was so dumb.
I was like, it would have had more weight if we had gotten to know her in a completely different way than what they tried to do.
Yeah.
It was like there was multiple different ways to go, and there was not enough Laurie in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, moving on. Now we're going to talk about Halloween Ends. So-
Careful.
Okay, we're going to be very...
You two.
Very careful.
We're going to be very careful. All I'm going to say is, again, going back to what Zack said about how pretty much every movie in this franchise is kind of pretty much the same thing. This movie does dare to be different. In
It
a
does.
really...
kind of crappy way.
in a crappy way. However, I respect
that they tried.
that they tried to do something new. However, I don't have to respect the movie because it is not good.
Right.
In that, oh, it's so hard to talk about this movie.
I would break it down into just bullet points. Bullet point 1: Jamie Lee Curtis should narrate some more audiobooks.
I agree. I agree.
She's narrated some children's books, and she narrated a copy of Pride and Prejudice.
Ooh,
I need that.
I want to
And
hear
I gotta
that.
say, after seeing Halloween Ends, I would like to hear more.
She does. She does have a narration throughout the movie, which I do like,
Um,
and it's a plot point why it's narrated.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is
I'll
the
say this without
funniest-
spoiling anything. The character of Corey.
is a Tumblr website.
What?
Okay, wait. I like the idea.
I do like the idea.
However, in execution, but I'm done. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
However, I like the idea, and I thought
It
the
was,
actor does a really good job. However,
Point 3
Yeah.
is it's apparently a lot like Christine, that movie Christine.
yes, another John Carpenter movie
Another
too.
John Carpenter movie. There's, I guess, like,
I could totally see the Christine parallel.
yeah, there's a romance that's essentially.
Oh yeah, this is the second worst quote unquote romantic movie I have seen this year.
Yeah.
Where I was
it's-
like, these two make no
No
sense.
sense.
Like, how the hell did this relationship happen this quick between two people who are like
never had met before.
never have met before? Both of them know each other's past.
Past. Which was a bit of a shocker for me because I felt like at some points it was like building up where she didn't know his past,
Well,
but then she was like, I know the past.
I'm watching you.
Another
I
point.
know.
Laurie Strode, maybe not the greatest matchmaker on the planet.
Oh my gosh, you're telling me a woman with decades worth of trauma over the same man hunting her down is not good at putting people together like Tinder?
What can we say? Oh, I thought, again, going based off, like, I like some of the kills. There's
Okay,
not
okay.
many.
But the first kill,
But- Oh. Yeah, okay.
that was like one of the most genuine holy fuck kills I've had in a while.
That was yeah, the intro to this movie is really good.
It's
Really,
really,
really
good.
good.
It was probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
So it was really good, then it just sucks.
Yeah.
It just like it's
I-
really
the
great, and then
movie-
it just,
It's basically like a gradual, like,
Yeah.
this is not good anymore.
Yeah.
Because, like, at first you're like, oh, this is a really cool idea. I like what the, oh, wait. Oh. Oh. Really?
Also, I would also like to say that this is like the second movie I've seen where I have confirmed my idea that people with mommy issues are on a whole different level than people with daddy issues. I'm just gonna stand by that forever.
Also, can I just say, I just read like the plot synopsis of movies 1 through 4 or 5, ignoring number 3. But holy shit, how is Michael not dead? He's been blown up with dynamite. He's had his throat slit so many fucking times.
And
He's
speaking
been
of number
shot
3,
so many times.
speaking of
Plot
number
armor.
3, they do make some homages to number 3 in this
Okay,
movie.
yeah, because the
Which are-
original
yeah.
point of the Halloween movies was
To be
an anthology. So, like, the first movie was supposed to be a slasher movie. But then they made a sequel, so people thought, okay, so the entire Halloween franchise is going to be about Michael Myers.
And then
So when they
came out
did
with number
3, and it had no Michael Myers, it was about these killer like, witches and masks and everything like that, everybody was like, what the hell is this? And then they were like, more Michael. So, to answer your question of why is Michael still alive? Money.
It's all about money. It's all about the money.
Yeah, because I read like the plot of the 5th movie, and supposedly like Jamie has like a telepathic connection, and there's supposed to be like this, or there was like this whole cult thing going on.
That's, yeah.
We don't want.
We don't talk about that.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm like going back to it. Like, it's the same plot every time.
Yeah,
with
that's-
a slight nuance, and then boom.
That's the thing, though, with the original third Halloween and this new third. Jesus Christ. This new third Halloween movie, they do try and dare to be different.
But
The problem is,
their execution was terrible.
I like the original Halloween 3. This one is trying to, like, go on, like, some weird idea.
I guess I'm saying when people like it, it's the same thing rehashed in a slightly different flavor. Whereas the ones that are different are typically not very well.
There's not, without going into spoilers, we really can't talk about this movie much. I'll say this, Jamie Lee If
Kills
you
it.
were like disappointed of how much she wasn't in Halloween Kills, she's in this movie a lot. She is great. There's
Yeah.
one scene with just her sitting down talking to someone. I thought that scene was badass. Yeah,
You
I
know,
thought the
she
acting
wants-
in the movie was
It was good.
throughout
It was
the
good.
board. It was
so
really
the
good.
character of Corey,
The
it was
actor does a great job.
He does phenomenal because like there is no. It's very hard to like wrap my mind around that Corey at the beginning of the movie is the same Corey that we see like mid.
At mid
Like,
and
I,
end.
I was psyching myself out thinking that this was a completely different actor for me because also I'm not really good with faces.
His mannerisms do
So
change. He
change.
does a really good job
Change
transforming
forming.
this character that he has created. That's why I'm like, I want to see him do more things. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, he does a really good job
Yeah,
in this movie.
like-
I'm like, I want to see him like do like,
Props to
Dramas,
him for like being like
action, I don't
doing the
know.
best with the script he was given.
yeah, like
because he really went all out. And
that's what
I
I'm saying.
just-
Like, I will remember Corey from this
From this
movie,
movie, yeah.
just for good and for bad.
bad. Yeah.
That's pretty much all we got to say. Also, I will say I did see this movie. My mom is a huge Jamie Lee fan. I just want to shout her out real quick. But halfway through this movie, she turned to me and said, "Are you enjoying this? Because I'm not enjoying this." She's like, "This is not what I expected this to be." This is the only horror movie franchise that we can like bond over because of Jamie Lee. Because she's
Yeah.
like, I like Jamie Lee, and I like this weird like the whole dynamic between her and Michael Myers, and like this is the only one that she likes the kills in. And
Yeah.
there's certain moments. There was one kill in this movie where at first she was like, "Oh, that's disgusting," but then once they do like a funny gag with it, she was like, "Oh, that's fucked up but funny."
Final
Well,
bullet point: the
Ignoring
Halloween
three, but-
ends opening credits. I really liked with the pumpkins and the
Oh, yeah, the
updated theme.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for
Oh,
the updated
fuck.
theme.
Okay, general thing about these Halloween movies. John Carpenter does the soundtrack for all of these movies, and I think this is his best work.
Yeah.
Like,
He really went off.
listen to not only the original Halloween theme, but in the 2018 Halloween movie, there is a track called "The Shape Hunts Allison."
I think so. Yeah.
That is my favorite horror movie song ever. It's
Like,
so good.
I was driving the other day and I put on the updated Halloween theme just for fun.
Uh-huh.
And I was going to change it to something else, but then I got more and more into the soundtrack and I was like, shit,
Mm-hmm.
this man
Yeah.
really went off.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna move on from Michael and talk about what I think is. Would you agree that Jason is a more iconic killer than Michael?
No.
I would.
I kind of want to bring this
You
up
know
to the
how
room.
everybody has like their big three, like the
Mhm.
shonen big three?
Yeah.
I would put Jason, Michael, and maybe Freddy.
Yeah. Those are
Yeah.
like the big three.
Yeah.
Big three
Those are
of.
definitely.
You can't really have a Mount Rushmore where there's four because that fourth one
I mean,
You-
I would
some
maybe
people put-
sometimes include Ghostface, but
Ghostface.
I would put Leatherface up there before
Uh-uh,
Ghost.
no way.
Leatherface.
Mhm.
I was
Fuck
gonna say I
Leatherface.
think those three are pretty unanimous. Everything else gets
It's
subjective.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
a
that's right.
fourth
That
one.
brings it.
There is a fourth one, but it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. The
Ghostface.
problem I have with any Jason movie that isn't the original is that
You mean the one without Jason?
right, because it's such like.
Uh-huh.
Sorry if you don't know the ending to this.
How do
movie,
you
it's-
not know? But okay.
But like the fact that it's his mom is just so crazy.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're like, haha, he was alive the whole time. Or like whatever their
Mhm.
excuse is. Like, it's just like, come on. It was so interesting that it
But
was
do
his
you
mom.
want to see like a 60-year-old woman going around?
No, I wanted it to be a standalone. I wanted them to stop. I
okay.
wanted them to say, we had a really interesting idea. Let's come up with another one.
But
instead of-
Katie.
Money.
I know. And Hollywood is stupid and never ever comes up with new original ideas. But that was a really interesting original idea.
What you just said is also not an original idea. But still,
No,
The hypocrisy.
the
of it.
hypocrisy is great.
but
But-
I'm right.
That's fair. I'll say this. We're gonna talk about like one of my favorite Friday the 13th films, which is Part 6. I love this movie because this is the movie that just pretty much gives into, yes, he's a supernatural killer. He comes back from the dead. This is it. We're going to make fun of ourselves. We're going to have characters break the fourth wall, and we're actually going to have a really cool heroic lead in this movie with Tommy Jarvis. And I feel like this is the movie where Friday the 13th really becomes like a popular franchise for me because you get a lot of really cool iconic kills. Jason is like an immortal killer that you cannot stop, so that's kind of scary. This is the one that's the most fun for me. I know some people will say like Jason X is the most fun one for them. People say Part 4 is the best one because it's a little bit more serious. But for me, I love Part 6 in that it just says, fuck it. Let's just have fun.
I guess I just wish that they hadn't kept going. Because why not just say, fuck it, we're going to make a fun movie that is its own thing.
Hold on. Jason was basically Frankensteined in this movie.
Basically.
Pretty much.
A lot of times.
Yeah, because what was it? Tommy Jarvis, when he was a little kid, he still has trauma from that. So he goes to Jason's grave and he's like, I gotta make sure he's actually dead. So that,
And then he fucks up and gets him electrocuted.
yeah.
And back
So
like,
what
oh my
happens?
God.
He gets like a
Jesus.
fence stake. The body has like maggots and it's rotten and all that shit. Like he is dead.
That's
But
when
he's
you
just
get
like, I gotta
kerosene in
make sure.
matches. Kerosene in matches.
Yeah,
bro.
kerosene matches, and then he stabs him with like a fence stake. God's basically like, ha, no, electrocutes that bitch, and Jason comes alive, basically Frankenstein style, and he's now like an immortal zombie killer. Like, it's
Now, I'm
pretty
not sure if that
ridiculous.
was heard in the mic, but I just face palmed.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but I love it.
You know what I really think it is, though, that makes, like, Jason and Michael so iconic? Is also that they're so recognizable because of their masks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so when they
True.
start changing Jason's mask, that also messes it up, because I'm just like, but he's not... Yeah, for me, at least, because I think that changes, like, some of the icon
What do you
moments.
mean by changes his mask? Because it's always... Oh, you mean like from Baghead to hockey mask? Or you just mean like those slight design changes they do to his mask?
No, he has, like, whole different masks in some of them.
Well, in the second one, they went for like a Baghead.
Mm.
Yeah?
No, that's not what I'm talking about, though.
Then what are you talking about? Because they're hockey masks ever since Part 3.
Yeah, but that one.
That's the one where he went to fucking
I know,
space!
I just didn't like it.
Well, that movie wasn't good enough.
Exactly. And that like has like scientific nanomachine bullshit to explain why it looks like that.
Anyway, but
Yeah.
that's my point.
It just feels like you're
That's
watching
why I think
softcore
Scream
porn
is
all
in my
over.
big three.
What's
because
wrong
the
with that?
mask.
Oh my
that's not
God,
really what I
Max.
signed up to watch.
That's fair.
Like, if that was your intent, like, they took sex cells and ruined the whole movie over
You know
it.
what, Max? Bonk, go to horny jail.
I've been in horny jail.
Oh my god, Max.
Bro has a reserved spot.
Yeah.
Nice.
Alright. Yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about the Friday the 13th movies. Right now, they are kind of going in like it's... I think it's been solved, but they've been in like a legal battle because the original writer of the movie wants credit for his work and like to get the rights back from the studio. So I think he actually did get those rights back.
Oh
so
my gosh. Fuck him. He wants the rights to the work that he did.
no, I'm not saying
I know,
that.
I'm kidding.
But I think they are now trying to get one off the ground. Like, because this will be the 13th, Friday the 13th. So I'm kind of like, you kind of have to make that. Honestly, I don't need them to reinvent the wheel with this movie. Just give me a fun time with Jason.
Now, you know what I would like to watch?
Something
A movie
new.
about the creepy history behind why Friday the 13th is a spooky day. That would be a fun movie.
With Jason?
No,
Oh.
just like a movie that's actually about Friday the 13th and why it's like such a spooky day.
Alright.
That'd be a good movie. You know what? I'll work on that. I'll start writing that right
Well, not right now, because
now.
we're going to be talking about a movie that pretty much parodies the whole slasher genre, ranging from Halloween to Friday the 13th. We're going to be talking about...
Should we
Screw-
start with Scream?
No, we're talking about Scream.
Okay, we
Because
can
it is a
start.
parody, or I should say parody, satire.
Yeah, it's a subversion.
Yeah, a subversion, satire. Like,
I love Scream.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let
Scream
Katie
might
take over with this because unfortunately I haven't seen most of the Scream movies.
What?
However, I've had
She
every
screams.
single killer spoiled for me.
Okay.
So it's kind of like I'm no longer in no rush to see these, but I still respect the movies. I don't hate them. I just
We're gonna watch them.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
gonna watch them all.
Let me
Okay.
start with another thing that I think makes Scream more in my top 3 than Michael Myers and Jason is the fact that because the killer changes, you actually don't know who it is. Like, if I watch a Halloween movie, I know it's Michael Myers, but if I watch a Scream, well, obviously now I know who the killer is. But, like, you know, you don't know who the killer is.
Yeah.
And that's, like, the fun part.
it's a whodunit.
Yeah. But the first one is just so iconic because it follows Sydney Prescott, who is my personal favorite final girl.
That's
Sorry,
fair.
guys.
That's fair.
But and like her friends are being murdered by this guy in a ghost face mask. And it's just so it's so iconic, and it's got the best. I don't know how to word this, because basically at the time, Drew Barrymore was really popular.
I love what they did with Drew
yeah,
Barrymore.
yeah.
That was really funny because my dad hadn't seen it.
Yeah,
And he then watched like the opening screen section and he was like, what?
because people thought Drew Barrymore was the main character.
Well, they put her on the poster,
Yeah.
like in front and everything like that, to really like mess with people.
That's what they also did in the second movie too with
Yeah.
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah, and
That's
so and then she
right.
dies in
Yeah.
like the first 5 minutes, and everybody's like, "Whoa!"
Who was the one that was like, oh, this is the big actress who's like the main character that they did for the new one? Was it Jenna Ortega?
Yeah, but Jenna Ortega doesn't die.
Oh,
So
good for her.
okay, so the thing that's pretty consistent with the
We'll
Scream
talk about
movies,
another movie with her in a bit.
Yes. The thing that's pretty consistent with the Scream movies is an opening like tagline of somebody dying, and then like, oh, it's a Scream movie.
Mhm.
But this one starts with that, except she doesn't die, and that's like the whole plot.
Yeah.
Really?
Like for the 5th one, and so then she is like set up as the final girl for the movies.
Mhm.
I guess that's a spoiler because you now know she's the final girl. But there's a couple of final girl setups for the new movies, so I'm interested to see where they go with that. But I don't
Also-
know.
Can I just say, I watched a compilation of the first Scream movie earlier of like all the times the ghost face fell and
Yeah.
Oh,
tripped.
yeah.
That is also like this movie is like because since they're very human,
They're
they're
people.
very prone to getting their asses beat, but they're
Yeah.
still kind of scary.
Yeah, most of the ghost faces are, they're just,
Because there's literally a
Wimps.
scene where the ghost face runs after somebody and literally trips and falls over a couch.
Yeah.
And
Or,
just
like,
kinda lays
his
there.
costume, I've worn that costume
It is
before.
hard to run.
It's hard to run in. It has like shit like that gets caught in on everything.
So props to the ghost face who can actually run a couple feet without
Tripping,
over.
yeah.
Well,
Also, my favorite one is when like she was trying to grab something from the fridge.
she
real
threw
quick.
a bottle at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it does have a really iconic kill too in the first one with
The garage.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's like stuck in the garage and she doesn't know how to get out.
Oh, no
and so
step, bro.
She starts climbing through the doggy door.
I like the theme that we have going through this
Yeah.
episode.
You're in horny jail.
Yeah.
Kind of
permanently.
iconic.
It's kind of fitting for slashers, though.
Okay, I will say,
Oh my
and this
God.
is like kind of a spoiler, but I feel like it's important to note, is that pretty much every Scream movie, except the third one, has two ghost face killers
Spoiler.
at least. Yeah. And so something that's really interesting is after watching them, figuring out who you think did what.
Yeah.
Because that's what I like to do, especially for the first one.
Like
You know,
which guy or
Yeah,
which
like-
guy killed which person.
who killed who, or like who
Yeah.
has certain mannerisms.
Yeah.
That would, who trips the most and who do you think would trip the most?
Uh-huh.
Before you align.
Also, what I like about these Scream movies is because it's like early 90s to mid 2000s, you get to see a lot of really cool like actors that you grew up with.
Yeah.
So like for me, it was what's his name? Shaggy.
Matthew Lillard!
Thank you. I can't believe I forgot his name. You get Matthew Lillard, another actress from Scooby Doo movies with Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah, she's in the second one.
Also, what's his name? He was Liev Schreiber, who plays like Sabretooth in the X-Men movies.
Oh.
He's in some of these movies too. And now with the newest one, you get you get Dylan Minnette, you get Jack Quaid, Jenna Ortega, and the rest.
Yeah.
At least those are the ones where I was like, those are cool for me because I like Dylan Minnette from, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get hate, but
13 Reasons Why?
I like him in that show.
You can like him in that show. Like, that's fine.
I don't like where they went with that character in the later seasons,
Yes.
but I like the idea of the
Oh,
character.
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
His performance is good.
His performance is good. I mean, you can. I like the first season of that show.
Yeah.
You can. I totally understand all the hate behind it, though.
Yeah, they're valid criticisms.
Yeah, they're valid criticisms. It's just that I like that show's first season, and then it just became a cash grab.
Okay.
But and Jack Quaid from The Boys, which if you
and
haven't
of course,
listened,
Dennis Quaid's son.
also Jack Quaid's legit good though.
Hey, nepotism doesn't mean you're
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
fair, you're fair.
There's plenty of nepotism babies that are really, really talented. I love Maya Hawke. She's still a nepotism baby.
That's true. He's from The Boys.
Yes.
Watch The Boys.
Okay, Okay.
watch our review of The Boys. Too.
One thing I will say too about Scream is that because it is a satire, they then within the universe of Scream make a movie about Scream called
Yeah.
Stab,
Yeah.
and it's so funny. Like it's so fun. Like Scream is very aware of what it is,
Oh,
but not to
yeah.
the point where they're like, we're just gonna be stupid. Like it still makes sense, and it's
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
stupid by any
It's not
means.
like Scary Movie, which we were
Yeah.
going to talk about, but sorry.
It's like it's very aware, but it's also still
Mhm.
good, and it pays nod to other like horror movies and.
Uh-huh. Because the first 4 are directed by Wes Craven. This was his franchise. Wes Craven pretty much, along with John Carpenter, like one of the top horror movie directors like of all time. Like he's created so many iconic horror movies, with one of them being, which we're now going to springboard into, A Nightmare on Elm Street. I love the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I watched it. I wouldn't say recently, but recently. I
Within
did
a
know,
year.
Within the year. I didn't know that Johnny Depp was in it.
Really?
What? Yeah, because again, I'm not really good with faces, so. I was
Yeah,
like-
it is a young face.
He's very young in this one.
And
It's-
in a crop top.
And in a crop.
It's really funny.
It is really interesting to see some of these like hugely popular actors and their like first movie roles.
Yeah.
It's like I think this is even before he did 21 Jump Street, the TV show, not the really hilarious movie.
Yeah. So basic premise is a sleep demon trolling children
Okay,
and killing them while they sleep.
trolling children.
I mean,
Yes.
traumatizing children
He murders them.
Well,
while they sleep.
Well, he was trolling.
yeah, that's
True.
pretty.
Okay. Okay. I wouldn't say demon because demon implies that he was born from hell.
Okay.
Freddy is a child killer who was murdered by the families of his victims, and they basically cornered him into like this boiler room or like building,
Yeah.
burned him, and it was mob justice that killed him. So he was just like, hey, you know what? Fuck y'all. I'm going to come back years later and kill y'all's children.
See, I think one of my favorite subgenres in horror is when the villain is actually just a bad person, and then they justify their badness by, because he's like, he was killing children, and everybody was like, hey,
Stop it.
don't do that. He was like, hey, you can't tell me what to do, and did it more. It's just so
Came back from the dead to haunt your dreams.
because I hate it when they make someone who does bad things and then they justify it. Like, come on, sometimes people are just bad.
I do too.
Yeah.
I hate that shit too.
And
Unless it's like incredibly valid.
It has to
why.
be really valid, right? Like with this, I love that they're like, no, he is just like bad.
he's just an asshole.
Yeah.
He's just
and-
a shitty person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he's not like the wacky Freddy in like the later movies. He's not
He's
saying
a very
bitch all the
serious
time.
Freddy.
It's
not-
scary.
It's scary. It's not serious. It's
He
scary.
fucks around, like he cuts off his fingers and grow them back, and it like tricks people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he's not going like it's prime time, bitch. And no, it's not
No,
that.
He's like.
Okay, but he is so petty.
He's
It's
petty.
so
He's petty.
He's petty.
It's
but like
iconic.
he's scary petty.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen them, but I know enough
Really?
about them.
Okay.
Well, because it's just like, I don't want to risk having nightmares about Freddy Krueger, like, just in case.
You don't want to encourage
That's
that.
fair.
But I think the thing that makes movies like this so good is that it battles on the things that you can't not do, right? Like, you can't not sleep. You
Yeah.
will die either
That
way.
is so true.
And
Like,
I love that. Like, that's what makes it so scary to the point that I'm like, maybe not.
mhm.
Because I want to sleep and
Yeah.
not be murdered.
I think this is one of those things where the unique thing about this movie that sets it apart from the previous two on like the Mount Rushmore we talked about is that it does the paranormal side of like
I'll slash.
it's unique in that its topic is it's not really a worldly being that's doing the killing,
Mhm.
and it's not even like a human that's like angry or a human that's malevolent. It's like this. I would say it feels more ethereal. It feels like most of it is done in the dream, and your nightmare becomes a reality
Yeah.
more so than it is a person that came back to do it in a dream. It doesn't feel very human.
He said
To
the
me.
thing.
What?
Your nightmare becomes a reality.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But like to me, it really does feel on first watch, right? Like you can look back at it and draw different conclusions where you're like, "Oh, this is like crazy. They just can't sleep or they'll die."
Yeah.
But then by the end, you're like, "Oh, he can just come into the real world." Like,
Because doesn't
They
he
can
like start
bring-
haunting the people that made the movies?
Oh, in the later movies when that was before Scream and Wes Craven was trying to like test the wheelhouse of like how meta can I get?
Right.
And he was just like, what if Freddy just came into the real world and haunted the original actors? Yeah, but in the first one, like, you can bring Freddy out of the dream world, but it's one of those things where you have to get a hold of him and basically, like, face your fears kind of thing. Like, instead of, like, running away from him and, like, you confront him and you take, and you basically what she does is she just, like, hugs him, and then someone wakes her up, and then when she wakes up, she brings him with him, and then she pretty much kicks his ass.
Yeah.
But yeah. Like, that's
but I don't know.
much...
To me, it feels different because it doesn't feel very human. It feels very supernatural. Like, we can't kill him. Like, that's known, right? Like, everyone in the other two is like, oh, how do we kill him? This one's not like, it's like, how do we stay away from him? Because, like, if we just don't find a way to, like, avoid the sleep, like, the being able to allow him to come into our dreams, we'll be good. He just exists there.
Yeah.
Like, we can run.
It
like
really...
there's hope, and it continuously gets snuffed out.
Yes.
Whereas the others, they're like, oh no, we'll eventually kill him. We just got to find how. It just feels different to me, and I think that uniqueness is what makes it interesting to me and keeps me engaged. Is that it's just different. It's not as linear on your first watch. You don't really know where it's gonna go. Whereas I feel like if you watch Halloween, you watch another one, you kind of have an idea, right?
Well,
like if you watch a
with Friday the 13th, it then became kind of like that, except for Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors was like, let's have some fun with the idea of like dreams, and like, what if like people had like, if one guy has dream powers, what if a bunch of other people had dream powers?
I guess to me it's like, oh, he's just gonna keep killing them in a row, and then eventually someone's gonna either kill him or they're gonna get killed. But this gives me like the Saw feeling I had, where like I have no idea what's gonna happen, but it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And that's how it felt to me when I watched it. It was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's definitely getting worse. And I think that was cool because I myself couldn't really figure out where the plot was going to end until it just did. Like, I would have thought she probably would have gotten killed or barely made it up, and she like kicked his ass. That like totally didn't see that coming. Yeah. For her to like
actually confront.
It was like an Aliens level of fighting back, or it's just like kicking ass left and right, and like that just wasn't what I thought was going to happen.
Because pretty much when he's in the real world, he's just a burn victim.
Yeah.
And like with claws, so like not really much to like be afraid of. But like I love the main actress in this movie. I wish I remembered her name, but yeah, she's really good. I like her interpretation of the character. And yeah, you guys both nailed it on the head of like what sets this movie apart is the idea of
Is the main girl Nancy?
Yes, thank you. I forgot about that. Thank you.
And then actor is Heather
Langenkamp.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. I forgot about that. But fact checker Kris.
Oh.
Yeah, I just love this kind of genre of slasher where it's like, yes, there's a killer going out there with a particular like handy weapon, and I think one that is my favorite of this kind of like paranormal-ish, supernatural killer has to be Candyman, and we're gonna try. There's no mirrors in this room, so we are safe for now. I love the original Candyman. Like, it is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love the themes it talks about, not only about race, but about, like, one of my true fears in life is being blamed for something I did not do. And this movie really played on that fear for me, because there's this woman, I forgot her name, but she's played by Virginia Madsen. She is doing a paper about Helen. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Why did I forget about that? She's doing a paper about urban legends, and so she's going to go into the Cabrini Greens of Chicago, which at the time
is bad.
It's
bad. It's a notorious like underprivileged section of housing in Chicago.
Cabrini
Greens towers were known for basically being what we know of as the south side of Chicago today with violent stuff, but it's basically right in the heart of Chicago.
Like this,
it's a short walk from Michigan Ave kind of deal, and you could just find yourself there, and it was riddled with gang violence until they tore down the towers.
Yeah, and this movie plays on that, because what I like about this movie in its race idea is that it is really much this woman going in and trying to... Okay, I'm just a white guy, so I can't really speak on all of the elements that this is talking about. So if you want to actually get some good, like, input on this, go out and hear valid theories, criticisms, inputs from either, like, black horror fans or YouTubers or something like that. But for me, the idea of, like, what why this character goes down this bad path is because of somewhat greed and like wanting to exploit these people, and what happens to her because of that. Because she's just like, okay, these bunch of like underprivileged people, like, okay, they have this Candyman that they talk about all the time, and like, what's that all about? Like, it's not real. So her friend's like, okay, if it's not real, go say it in the mirror. And she's like, all right, sure, let me go do that. And then shit happens where at first it's proven that the Candyman isn't real and it's just some guy who just carries around a hook. And they're like, okay, so there's no actual Candyman, until one day she goes into a parking lot and most beautiful killer in the world, Tony Todd, as Candyman, just is like, be my victim, and puts a hypnotic trance on her. She passes out, wakes up in one of the interviewees' rooms, and she's covered in blood. She has butchered this woman's dog, and her child is nowhere to be found. So they are like, what happened? She's in a trance. No one knows what happened. And the whole rest of the movie is her trying to prove her innocence in the most
Just crazy.
crazy of situations, because there is all the evidence is stacked up against her. As the audience, we know she didn't do it. It's this Candyman, and the Candyman keeps killing people around her to make it worse. And yeah, it just plays on that fear of mine of like this poor woman who is just, admittedly, she was doing it for like somewhat of a selfish reason, just to have like a good college paper. But as a college student, I'm like, sometimes you do want to like get the best paper, but like just sometimes you don't want to go to those means of doing it. Going on the idea of like Freddy and like him being like a real presence, I feel like Candyman has the best presence of all of these killers, because he's smooth, he has a great voice, he's a bit romantic, and that's kind of interesting too, because at the time this was a pseudo interracial relationship kind of thing going on here, but they couldn't go forward with it because at the time they were not allowed to have a white girl kiss a black man on screen, but they were going to have it. But it's unfortunate they didn't, because I could, unlike another movie we did talk about where I did not buy the relationship at all, you could kind of buy into this relationship because it's not a healthy one by any means, but you could totally see like everybody else in her life is just kind of cutting her off, and the only person that's kind of giving her some like bit of respect and like you are beautiful, be my victim, be by my side, we can live together and everything, like the one that's kind of giving her any bit of like attention or affection is this killer. You're like, it's not healthy. It's the beautiful Tony Todd. Yeah, I mean, I keep raving on this guy. He's so good as Candyman.
Yes.
He's so good. And yeah, his gimmick is his chest is like a big old skeleton with bees crawling over it, because that's how he died. And he also has a hook for a hand, so that's how he stabs people. His
Like the hash-slinging slasher, sorry.
Oh, Jesus
Oh
Christ.
God.
So his thing is like he will cut people from their groin to their gullet, so he'll just split them.
With movies like this, like with Nightmare on Elm Street, the reason it's so good is it plays on things that you cannot
Control.
avoid.
Yeah, or control.
Like, mirrors are such a common thing within culture to be like foreboding and representative of like death and things like that. So it's, I just think it's interesting when writers know what they're talking about, kind of.
Yeah, it is. The movie is based off a Clive Barker novel or short story at the very least. I have not seen the new Candyman, but I heard that the original Candyman was made by a white director, and you can kind of tell. It talks about race mostly from like a white perspective, so you can't really like have that real perspective on it. But the new one's made by Nia DaCosta, who became the first ever black female director to have a #1 movie ever in box office. So good for her. And I have nothing against the new one. It's just that I just did not like some of the lore changes they did personally. However, the reason why they changed the lore around is to help feed on the theme of the racism that is clearly tied in with this character of Candyman. I totally understand it. It unfortunately didn't work for me, and that I would have appreciated them kind of doing what Candyman was originally. But I can totally see why they did it. It's really hard to explain because what they explain Candyman is now, instead of just being this ghost or persona that haunts you, how you become Candyman is you become a victim of injustice. So most of Candymans tend to be black males, and the only one that's ever been different is a white woman. So
Yeah, because it looks like Helen actually became a vengeful spirit
she
at the end
did.
of the movie.
Yeah, she's not a Candyman, but she did become a vengeful spirit. But they don't really address it in the new one, but they don't really like show her spirit coming back. Like the one in the new movie is a different guy. I forgot the name of him, but there's like 3 Candyman in the new one, like different Candyman. You got your main guy who's turning into a Candyman. You have the Candyman that came after Daniel Robitaille, who's Tony Todd, and then you have Tony Todd show up in the end, which I was kind of disappointed by, but then again, Tony Todd's kind of getting up there, and he really can't be doing Candyman that more, but I at least appreciate that they kind of brought him back a bit. But yeah, I still say go watch the new one. I prefer the original, and I don't mean to sound like a typical hipster, but I just do. I just think the new one, some of the characters didn't work for me as well, and it's a good movie, just not really for me. But yeah, how about we move on to a relatively recent horror film that's kind of within the theme of this episode. Okay, it's been the ongoing joke of this episode.
I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk about X.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain the plot of X? Because I'm coming.
So-
Should you explain?
So X is about a group of people who have sex for money, but in the form of pornography, and they're making a porno, except the guy who wrote it is like, but this is art. It's not just sex, even though it's clearly just sex. We never get to see the finished movie that he's making.
No.
But they like go.
Well, for reasons.
Yeah, for reasons. So they go and stay on this farm to film their movie.
In good old Texas. Woohoo!
Yeah, and then and it takes place in the 70s too.
That is a big important theme to say
Yes.
though, because the 70s was like a big moment for like horror films because of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Yes.
and also Halloween. It was also a real big important time for porn, and it's an important theme in this movie because this movie is about exploitation a bit. So not only is that in like violence, that is also in sex.
Yeah.
So the director has come out and said like, I just wanted to make a movie that was like uses all the things that people criticize about the horror genre and like the constant characters having sex and the violence. And he was just like, I'm just gonna like go for it and like actually try to make a good movie using those things. So
Yes.
just go for it and don't like chicken back on it.
But then
Gotcha.
of
So he
course,
leaned into it.
Oh, he
murder
leaned into
happens.
it. Yeah, murder happens. It also plays on the elements of age.
And religious undertones.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yes,
It's totally
okay.
religious
I-
undertones.
Yeah, especially with the whole sex and violence thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Sex and violence.
So
Right.
I'll say this: the killers in this movie are an old married couple.
Right. Who can't get it up.
Yeah, like the old man, he's kind of up there.
He's impotent.
He's impotent. He also has a heart condition, so like if blood goes to one area, it's not going to go to one area.
Right.
So they really can't do anything. She is old and horny. Like she sees this like good-looking guys all over his planet. Great-looking women too. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And she just can't help it. Like I want that, and when I can't have that, I'm gonna kill them.
So I think my thing with this movie is people hyped it up a lot.
They did.
So I thought it was like redefining of the genre.
It really isn't.
It isn't. And that's fine. I'm not saying it's bad because of that, but it changed my perspective because I was going in thinking, oh my gosh, this movie's like a whole new genre of horror and slasher and it's going to change everything.
A movie where hype made it suffer.
Yeah.
I would, yes, the
Well-
hype around it, but however, I think what people were trying to really say about the movie is that it's just a good version of those, like, of the classic
Yes.
formula. Like,
But
it-
I didn't realize that, so it changed my
Yeah,
perspective on
it did for me too. It took a while because upon first viewing, I was like, oh, so there's not really any big twists. No, it's not reinventing the wheel. However, when you really think about what the movie's about, it just, the themes it plays on is what makes it good.
Yeah.
And it's just using this classic form of a slasher movie, and especially, like, if you've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the movie that kind of kicked off all the movies that we're talking about this list, I don't know, it just really works in that, like, it's a fun movie too. And it also has all these really deep elements about sex, violence, and the exploitation.
Deep
of
undertones of some societal things.
It almost plays the same way that Scream does, but in a
Yes.
different version.
Yes.
I will say the only thing that I truly have a problem with in this movie is the final girl. Not that she's bad, but it doesn't feel earned. It kind of just like...
Why though?
Because, okay, I don't want to spoil it, but the problem with this movie is there's no big moment where everyone in the group is like, oh my gosh, they're murderers. Instead, it kind of just, like,
Happens in bits.
And so she only, like, survives because of luck. Like, she doesn't have to fight anything off. She doesn't, no, because, think about it.
Well, because of, you brought up the religious undertones, they do kind of reveal a reason why she's kind of good at these situations.
It's bad. It's dumb.
I feel like
Okay.
I haven't seen it, so I feel like I would need it spoiled slash clarification.
Yeah.
And it
way
wouldn't
on.
really be, like, this big, crazy reveal
It
either.
isn't. It's not a huge reveal, but it does kind of retroactively be like, oh, that explains more why this particular person is in this scenario
Yeah.
and why they are so good at getting out of situations.
I guess it just kind of, it doesn't feel like any crazy
No.
Sidney Prescott, Laurie
No.
Strode moment. Even, like, the final battle is, like, 2 minutes long. And
Well, look, you're saying final battle, but you have to keep in mind the whole joke of the movie too is that they are old.
Yeah.
So like they are only getting the upper hand on these people because they're using this idea of like
they're old, so they're not dangerous.
they're not dangerous, and also that way you act around like elderly people, like you have to be very careful because they can't move as fast and they can't do anything. So they use that against these young people. So they're like everybody's all nice to them, and then they're like, okay, yeah, you're nice to me, stab or push you into the lake with a crocodile.
Yeah. I know. It's just like, I don't know. I just like...
I think I like this movie better than you did.
I know I liked it.
Okay.
I just really do appreciate those moments where everybody's like, oh my gosh, there's a killer. Instead, they all slowly but surely get picked off, and there's no crazy moment where they're like, oh, it was them the whole time. And
See,
so then the final girl
Okay,
just
yeah.
happens to be the final girl.
Okay, yeah, go on.
I feel like this is. I feel like you guys are each pushing for a point, and again, I haven't seen this. It's totally just a guess.
Mhm.
This sounds more like the kind of slasher X-drama tension type film where it's like, oh, we rented a cabin and the owner gave us the key and now the
Yeah.
owner's in the house
It
trying
is,
to kill
it
us.
is.
Yes.
So it's not like
It's really
like you
not,
can't compare it to Freddy or Jason because they're so that is like the group against one person.
Mhm.
This is kind of like Clue,
Yeah.
which sounds dumb, but Clue is like, who's the killer? Let's try to use the thing. But by the time
See,
everything
It's not
is
really that though, because they kind of show they tell like
We know...
no, not the audience, the characters.
Oh,
Right,
Like
but
you're
the
you're a
characters.
bird's eye view of everything going on.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Because you
It's-
get to see everything.
It's more like the characters don't actually know that there's a killer, because every time someone dies, the other character is like, huh, I wonder where this person went. Let me go look for them. And then when they look for them, the old people are like, now this person's prime pickings, right? Like, it's never this moment where, like, people get... There's only one moment like that at the end where they get together and they're like, these are murderers.
Mhm.
But it's so cut short.
It is, but
It makes...
I love the joke though of what happens afterward.
I'm sorry. The way her body flies,
This shit was so funny. Oh my god.
that also
Both
plays
bodies
with, like,
fly
the
though.
religious undertone, too, though.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
oh my gosh, yeah, the way bodies fly in this movie because they don't know how to hold guns.
I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like it's like almost like
It's
some
fun.
unintended comedic
It's
moments.
enjoyable. Totally
It's
enjoyable.
unintentional for like the scenario, but I totally feel like that was intended because again, I like slasher movies where there's no real I like when they like fully go into it. I like it. I don't like this like is
Half-baked,
it like supernatural? I like
It's not.
Wait,
It's
when did
not-
X come out?
this year
Yeah, like in May, I think.
May
Oh,
early
then
this year.
because-
Pearl just came out.
Yeah,
Because-
the sequel came out, or technically prequel came out.
There is a
September.
sequel.
There is going to be a sequel.
It just sounds like to me, without seeing it, that this movie is more about the message than the movie. Where it's like the impermanence of things, or the religious undertones,
the exploitation,
or the exploitation. Like, because you could take the philosophical route here and go, the fact that they don't really care what's happening to them and they just assume they're just gone is the impermanence of how we treat people, like in this line of work, like they're just disposable. Yeah. And so now they're just dead. Like, you could make some sort of, like, you know, philosophical choice here where it's like, oh, that's what I choose to see in these killings, right? Where it's like, it's more about the meta than it is about the actual plot points here.
Also, I haven't seen Pearl, right?
I haven't either.
I can't talk about it in that sense. But, like, she is just like me for real. The sounds that are trending on TikTok are so funny. Because she's like, why are you leaving me? I thought you liked me. And it's iconic. And then she's like, I'm a star. And she's just like me for real.
I hope not. It's just a really well-crafted movie. And I think...
it also happens to have boobs in it.
Sex sells, as they say.
Yep.
Yeah, that's never a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, a little bit isn't bad.
Okay, I'll say this, because,
That's
like, and sometimes when it's just, like, a bunch of college kids and you see it, I'm like, that's a bit creepy. But when it's, like, they're fully acknowledge, like, these are pornographers, they are consenting to this, they are wanting to do this,
I don't know.
That's fine for me.
I just disagree. I just think it's worthless unless it adds to the plot.
It does.
It does.
No, in this it might, but I'm saying
Absolutely.
Generally speaking.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
like
you said
it when...
even if it was college kids, but that's the point of the movie or something, right?
No, well...
No, I'm saying out of context of this movie as a
yeah,
wider
yeah.
idea that, like, I think generally if it doesn't add to the
yeah,
plot
like-
point, it's worthless. So the fact that it does is a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels a little bit more like this feels more exploitive. But like for this movie, it's like, well,
That's kind of
it's kind of the point. So if you were to not show it, then you'd just be cutting back on what you're really trying to say here.
right.
So they're not like actually doing stuff. They still have an intimacy coach and they have all the proper things that you're supposed to do on a professional movie set when you're doing scenes like this. So it's
Right, but you won't see that in the movie.
okay. I'm gonna get crude. You won't see any penetration. You don't see any of that. The most you get is probably a shot of guy's dick.
I don't. Well, actually,
Yes. I won't say who it is, but let's just say it's a professional rapper.
No.
Yeah.
You don't see his in the movie.
Yeah, you do.
No, you do not.
Yes, you do.
No, you see
I
his
was
ass.
looking.
You were looking. That is not the dick you see.
I want to see men.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, we're just gonna have to watch this movie again.
I'll watch it.
I also, and this just might be me, think that there's racial undertones as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, I mean, for the era, it would
Hell
make sense.
yeah.
It would
It's
definitely make sense.
the 70s.
Well, and also, like,
Oh, you're right.
especially within the porn industry, there is this real
Yeah.
weird racism element to it, especially.
I would say race element
Race.
now more, but racism maybe back
Eh,
then.
I would say, yes, in both now and back then.
I don't know if it'd be race. I think it's just racism and stereotyping. Or race
Stereotyping.
race and stereotyping.
Stereotype.
It's also on the after effects of the Vietnam War, too. so
That is
there's some
also
of that.
true.
There's a lot. There's a lot of undertones here to take into
Setting
account.
it
when
in the
viewing movie.
70s was probably the best thing this movie did. So another modern movie that we're going to be talking about that's still kind of within like more of like I would assume the Scream subgenre of horror. Katie is going to be talking about Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I didn't see this movie just because it looked interesting, but it didn't really catch me. But I kind of want you to try to sell this movie to me.
Okay, so Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is a dark comedy that satirizes like the worst traits of Gen Z,
Okay.
as well as like it also talks about race and sexuality and gender and like wealth. It's literally like everything. Think of like not cancel culture per se, but like think of the way that like Gen Z does things.
Mhm.
Like things like cancel culture and how we decide who has value and things like that. Like, I don't know how to describe it in a way because it's so funny because there's so many moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I know someone just like that.
Oh, okay.
Like there's
So
this
the relatability plays a huge
Yeah.
element to this
Alright.
movie.
there's this one girl who has a podcast and I'm like, damn, do I look like that? Because she's like, podcasts are really hard. And like she's right, but the way it's so funny. Or there's moments where a character will be like, your family is upper middle class, and they're arguing about what class divisions they are, and it's so. But then also there's really important moments where they discuss like there is a character who has like addictions and she has gotten past them, and she's like, why is it that when I, a black girl, have problems with drinking, it's an addiction, but when you guys do it, it's normal because you're all white, right? Like it talks about those kinds of things, and it's a black comedy, so it's very funny, and it's very much a whodunit because it's Clue, and they're all trapped in this house during a tornado or like some weather phenomenon. Maybe it's a hurricane, and they're trapped in the house.
I think it was a tornado. It said when I was reading the IMDb.
They can't leave, and then people start dying, and so they're like, it has to be someone in this house. We just don't know who. And so then there's also play of like, who do you trust? Are they really your friends if you're like, I know that you're capable of killing me, right? Like all of those things. And if they are your friends, like where do your divisions lie? Are you siding with one person more than the other? And do you think this person is more capable of murder than the other person? And it's just all these things. And there's so many like miscommunications and misunderstandings that just lead to more and more carnage. I had a problem with the ending, but I know a lot of people liked it, and so I won't spoil it because it's very much a subversion of what you expect to happen. But then it just ends, and you're like, where do the people that are still alive go from here? Because with that ending, what are they going to tell people, right? It's such an out-of-pocket ending, and it's the kind of ending that can only happen in a movie with Pete Davidson.
I was just about to ask. Because I only know like 2 actors in this movie. I know Pete Davidson's in this movie, and Maria Bakalova?
Was she in Shiva Baby?
No, she was in Borat 2. She plays Borat's daughter, and she's a great actress because the shit she had to do in that movie.
Because the girl that was in Shiva Baby is in this, and she was really good.
I don't know what that
is. The girl who played Rue in Hunger Games, Amanda Stenberg, is in this.
That's who that was. Okay.
Yeah. And then
I've seen the trailer, so I kind of know.
There was also a little bit of drama around it.
What?
Yeah, because...
Do tell.
Well, okay, because Amanda Stenberg, her character has boobs. Whoa, shocker. And so this one, like, critic who was a lesbian, like, was like, oh, it feels more like a movie about boobs than anything else. And Amanda, like, made a joke about it, and then the critic took it way out of proportions. And it was just... What? It was so strange.
It's almost like the movie was trying to talk about that. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it literally very much
crazy.
was like...
Wait, was she complaining that, like, you saw them, or is it...
That the movie was simplified to sex is what it's made
really?
it sound
Which
like
it
from that
was
comment.
not at all. Like, I saw the movie, and there was no sex, no, like, you didn't see anything. I think it's actually just that Amanda Stenberg has a bigger chest. That's literally all it is. And so it's such a...
So?
That's what I'm saying. And so this critique was not a valid critique because it feels like they just didn't watch the movie. And that's something that Amanda had joked about, to be like, oh, maybe if you had watched the movie instead of looking at my boobs, you would have liked it more. And that's a funny joke.
No, that's actually pretty funny.
Honestly, yeah, that's a good kind of a good role.
And so it was just literally is proof that the movie is correct in, like, what it's saying and what it's doing. Because then, like, the movie does play on, like, the idea of white tears and, like, you know. It's so, like... Again, like,
do you feel like it did a good job of representing it, though, of the actual culture, or do you feel like it's only going to be a good movie to people who can relate to the characters?
No, so I think it does well in representing the culture, but very specific sub-genres of the culture.
Like,
so I feel like
college level?
It's more like I think that most people can walk in and go, oh, I totally know a girl that does that. Or, I totally know what this is like.
Would it only be for, like, people our age?
Yeah.
Really?
I feel like it has a shelf life, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do feel like a movie like this would have, like, a shelf life. Unless,
I feel like
people...
there's lots of movies like that, though, that are still called classics because they relate to a population.
Yeah, and maybe if, like, as we grow older, we could be like, this was what it was like.
That was how it was.
Yeah.
Or there's also the potential that, like, in 20 years, people could look at this and be like, oh, why are we still like this?
True.
Like, why did we not learn from these ideas?
Like, these were the warning signs.
And this, I don't want to spoil anything, but this is so freaking funny. So I'm just going to say it. There's a character in it, and he's, like, an older guy, so then it, like, plays on that weird, like, why is this teenager with a guy who's 20 years older than her? That's kind of why. You know,
how old are the people in this? Like, the characters?
They're like college-ish age.
So, like,
they're 20-somethings.
Yeah.
So is it not like
They're not teenagers.
Okay, so like, so probably like 19 at the youngest.
They're like older Gen Z, I would say.
Okay, so like 19 at the youngest. So this guy's probably like what, 20?
He looks like he's 30. He is noticeably casted to look older than
Yes,
everyone else.
because that's the
Okay.
point of his character.
Got it.
And so the girl that's dating him is like, he's a vet, right? And so everyone else thinks that he's like a veteran. And so then when like bodies start dropping, they're like, this guy, because like maybe he has, you know, PTSD and like maybe all these things, and he knows how to handle a gun because he's a veteran. And then like stuff happens, and she's like, he's a vet, guys. He loves animals. Why do you think this? And they're like, you said he was a vet, like a war vet. And she was like, no,
Veterinarian.
he's a veterinarian. And it's so funny. Like, that's just what I mean, is it's like a dark comedy. I was laughing pretty much the
That's
whole
like
time.
our brand of humor, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
generationally,
so
that is a
funny.
brand of humor, though, I would say. So
Yeah, it's just like, I
agree
wanna
with
be
you on the
taken
chocolate
out.
thing.
That can be taken two different ways. It's either I want to be taken out on a date or I want to be fucking assassinated.
Yeah, it's cool.
Which is our
True.
generation.
I wouldn't say that the ending ruins it for me because of how funny it is, but it's not scary in the traditional sense. Like, it's more of a dark comedy than a
Like
horror.
a thriller.
I wouldn't even say it's a thriller. There
Wow.
are moments where I was like, oh, because, okay, there is a moment where they're like,
Are the kills
battling.
brutal?
They're mostly off screen.
Fuck. Okay.
But that's
Well,
what
that's the point.
yes,
Alright,
because
yeah, right.
when you see the
Because
ending,
it's
you're
a
like, oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why. I think there's only a couple moments where I was like, oh, what's gonna happen next? But then otherwise, it's just kind of like, oh, that's really funny, and I totally know someone like that. Wow.
I gotta watch this movie.
I feel
I'm sold.
like it probably, you're making it sound like its biggest strength is that you can relate to the people.
Uh-huh.
So you have some level of connection with all the characters by happenstance.
Yeah.
Meaning that it all just comes out better, because if you can't relate to the characters, then them dying doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So
Also, one of those things where afterwards you're like, dear God, I hope my friend group isn't as bad as that one. Like
I'll
it
be
just
the judge of
it
that.
makes you so aware of how like potentially toxic your friend group is
Yeah.
or is not, because you're like, wow, these guys maybe actually aren't friends.
Yeah.
maybe they would kill me if I was locked in a hurricane mansion
Yeah.
during
yeah.
a storm in this particular time.
Only one way to find out. Moving on,
Mhm.
we're gonna be talking about, or again, I haven't seen these movies. Katie is gonna be talking about the Fear Street trilogy.
Yes. Well, for starters, Fear Street is based off of R.L. Stein books,
Oh,
and they're like Goosebumps but for teenagers, which means that the books have a body count.
Goosebumps had a body count. Some did.
Not the same way that Fear Street does.
Fair,
it's more
fair.
seriously.
I know. I'm just
taken
trying to.
as like
Yeah.
a real
I'm
thing.
just trying to be the. But actually.
But
Yep.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the books, there's like, I don't know, 50 or 60 some books. And so the movies, instead of being like direct adaptations, are like pulling things and ideas, which is totally acceptable. And I thought like an ideal way to do it, because honestly, there are some of the books where I'm like, there is no way that this would be an entertaining movie. And so it's a trilogy. And the way that Netflix did it is that they filmed pretty much all of them like the same time, before the pandemic, so then that threw some stuff off. But then when they came out a week apart. And so you started with the first movie, which is 1994, and you follow Sam and Dina and this group of like friends, and they're being hunted by this killer, who is also dead.
Oh.
And so basically what you find out is like Fear Street takes place in the town of Shadyside, and then there's the town of Sunnyvale. And Sunnyvale is like perfect, never has crime, never has murder, the ideal like American dream place. And then Shadyside is everything that the American dream fears. You know, everyone's poor, everyone has addiction issues, everybody is, you know, literally some of the main characters are selling drugs for money, right? And not in like a, it's weird. I don't know how to explain it. But, you know, Shadyside is suffering from consistent murders, consistent, like all these really, really bad things. And so it opens with a mass murder in a mall. And then you're following these characters who are then being hunted by that same killer who is supposedly dead, but it's all from Sarah Fear, who is like the town urban legend. She's a witch that was hung in 1666, and so now she's like haunting the town. And she's the reason that Shadyside is the way that it is. And so 1994, you're following them. And then 1978, you're following a massacre at a camp, so it very much follows like along the lines of, you know,
Friday the 13th.
yes. And then 1666 goes all the way back to when it started.
Wow.
And I really don't want to spoil anything because this is one of those ones where I'm like, genuinely, I think you would get really good, like, have a really good time with it. It has some really, really good kills.
Yay.
The first one, I don't want to say too much, but there is a bread slicer, and it
I
does
heard
involve
about this
somebody's
one.
head.
I
So
saw
it's
it.
very gross.
Sounds awesome.
And like I said, it subverts the genres, right? So like think of all the people you know would die in a horror movie, right? Like usually you're people of color, usually the gay people, usually the people having sex. That's not how this movie is. Like it completely subverts those ideas.
This whole trilogy.
The whole trilogy. And like the sequel, literally
fucked.
this one is a spoiler, but like I'm not gonna say the name, so maybe you'll just forget. But it introduces a character that is like you're like, yeah, this is totally the final girl. She is everything that a final girl is. She has goals, she's a virgin, she doesn't cuss, like she's all these crazy things, right? And then she dies anyway. And it's so like you don't see it coming because it's setting
Jarring.
her up. Yeah. But also like you get attached to the characters. I think that's the one thing that this movie does really well, is that even though I wouldn't say they're typically like scary in that sense, you feel for the characters. I personally cried for all of them.
Okay.
I'm also a big baby, but they are like people do really connect with these characters and you want to see them succeed. It's not like a typical slasher where you're just like, oh, there's the next victim, oh, there's the next one. You're like, no, like I want to see these kids make it through. I want to see them succeed because you see yourself in them, but you also like see their struggles, you see what they're going through, and it's just so good. And it plays on like different tropes. So like 1994 is very much a Scream type of movie. You're being followed around by a skull face killer, you know, very much Scream. 1978 is very much like Friday the 13th, all of those classic like you know summer camp ones, and then 1666 is a la The Witch.
Oh, well, of course, yeah. Or like
and-
that pilgrim area, like
Yeah.
colonial horror kind of.
And
Yeah.
it has a really good plot twist and a really strong through line because, like, you can literally sit down and watch all of them in a row and it feels very connected. I would say the one that is the easiest to watch on its own is 1978. So if you're ever like, oh, I really just want to watch a movie and I want it to be Fear Street, but I don't want to watch all of them, you can, like, skip the first 10 minutes of the movie and then be like, oh, cool. You know, because it's very much standalone type of energy. It's, yeah.
There's a through line, but it's not
Yeah.
necessary to have the others to understand it. It's a good
Yes.
standalone movie. It's better if you have the context.
Yes.
I have
Okay.
another question now
Yeah.
about this. Are they also connected in by each movie shares the same actors? Is it like American Horror Story in that way?
Kind
Or like
of.
certain actors appear?
Okay.
Kind of like, again, with, let's say, like Final Destination. Tony Todd will appear in those movies as the same character,
Right.
but he's not the main character.
Okay, so Dina and Sam are pretty much in all of the movies, but they're not the main character in every movie. And I don't want to spoil too much, but basically, if you bleed on Sarah Fier's body, you see visions of like what happened. And so you're trying to connect her hand and the rest of her body because it got cut off. That's a part of like the legend of like Sarah Fier's wicked hand keeps her firm grip on the land, right? And so if you connect them, you get to see like the whole story of what happened. And so with the third one of 1666, that's what you're going back to, but you're seeing it from the perspective of a character that you already have. So she's playing Sarah Fier, and the people she knows are playing the people that were interacting with Sarah Fier.
Oh.
And so it's the same cast, but it's done in a really interesting way because they're not playing the same characters.
Is it like
Yeah, I expected
Is
that. I
it
was
like
just-
descendants of the characters in the most modern day, where they like go back to like their grandma or whatever?
Kind of. They do that with two characters, and they do it really, really subtly. So you kind of have to like watch it again to be like, oh my gosh, those are descendants.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Now another question: should you watch it in the order it came out, or can you watch it in the order of timeline wise?
Do not watch it in order of timeline.
Okay.
Because that will literally ruin the first two, at least on first
Okay.
watching. If you're like, oh, this would be really interesting to watch in
So you
order,
should watch it from the current day backward to
Yeah.
1666.
watch it the way.
I was just curious because like it could. I was just curious if it could work both ways.
I would say, again, without spoiling too much, is I wouldn't recommend it even after you've already seen it, because the way that 1666 is built, it just doesn't have a consistent enough through line to then watch forward.
It
You know what I
wouldn't
mean?
really add anything until
No.
the last movie.
Yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense. I don't know how to say it without like.
No, you're
Spoilers,
fine. You're fine.
maybe
I was
plot
just
points.
asking. I was just curious. Like, it could have been
Yeah.
a yes or no answer.
I would say that you could watch 1978 and then 1994 if you really wanted, but I again wouldn't recommend it. I would
Might
just
as
say
well
watch
watch it.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
at that
Just
point.
curious. Just curious.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, wow, you did a really good job selling me on these two movies because
Three.
Yeah,
Probably
I don't
was-
like horror, and that still sounds good.
yeah, that
Well-
sounds bodies more sounds more up my alley, but like this
Fear
does
Street
sound.
does have really comedic moments too, and it does have some pretty good.
I know like R.L. Stein does have that like sense of kind of like morbid humor.
I was
Like,
always a Goosebumps fan, so I
Me
think
too.
I would
Yes.
like.
Yeah,
Well-
me
I'd
too.
enjoy
Well,
this.
like this just seems like
Okay.
Goosebumps XXX. Hold on.
It's also okay.
Extra, I should say.
So you know what you love about like all of your classics where you're like, I love this one killer, so I watch these movies. Fear Street has multiple within one single movie. So even though you have a main killer, you're also like following other things. And so then you can keep watching it and be like, I really like this one killer, even if they're not the main killer. And so then that's another thing that's really interesting is you can talk with your friends about like, well, I really like Billy Barker because, or I really like Ruby Lane because, or I like Nightwing because, and so it's just all these like different not
Killers within the show.
No, like
Yeah.
Nightwing, like.
Camp
Dick Grayson?
Nightwing. Camp
Okay.
Nightwing is so they call him the Nightwing Killer.
Okay. I was about to be like, what is Dick Grayson doing?
This sounds like the same way American Horror Story is appreciated by people,
Yeah.
in that fans of horror get a little bit of
Extra.
all the best things of horror that they enjoy.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a plug for the books is it's kind of fun to read the books and be like, oh, I see the element of this book in this movie, or oh, I see this character kind of happening here, and
Mhm.
that's really, really interesting because you can see like the connections. Me personally, the first book I read was the Cheerleader series, and they're very directly tied to the 1994, which was really cool. Literally, it's in the movie as plot armor. Like, it's there, you see it. I watched it, I was like, oh my god, that's my book! So, I'm just a little nerd about Fear Street. I
You're
have
good,
the
you're
posters
good.
and everything. I
Oh
love
my
Sadie
God.
Sink too. I didn't give her enough credit.
Yeah.
Sadie Sink, my baby. Even though she's older than me.
That's like when
And
people
moving on.
Yeah, Kris. Again, we're $1 Million Media, but as of recently been talking more about video games. So Kris here wants to talk about like one of the pinnacle of the slasher video game genre, or like
Honestly,
the asymmetrical style
kinda.
of like a slasher subgenre. You're going to be talking about Dead by Daylight,
Yes.
which does have many of the killers we talked about on this list as DLC killers.
All right, so for those of you who don't know, Dead by Daylight is a game that came out in 2016. Originally, there were only 3 killers, and then as the game got more popular, they were able to do like partnerships and DLCs.
And got more money.
Oh my god!
I'm beating this dead horse. I don't care.
But yeah,
Shoot
So,
me kicking it.
basically, it's a multiplayer cooperative game. You have 4 people who are the survivors, and then 1 person who's the killer. You don't know who or what killer it is until like you actually get in game and you can see it. And, like each killer has like their own unique style of killing. Each of them has their like pros and cons. And same with the survivors. They each have like their own pros and there's like skill sets and all that you can get into. I don't get into that very much. I'm just like, haha, there's a murderer coming after me. I'm gonna do
Run.
everything in my power not to get killed. But basically, the plot line of it is it kind of gets into paranormal. There's this thing called the Entity that draws characters and people in from like different universes. They put them in this one universe. It's really weird. But yeah.
I didn't know that, but okay.
Oh,
You gotta have some sort
yeah.
of plot device that pulls it all
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
is it every
yeah.
killer
I
from
get
every
that, but I
universe?
was
the
just
Entity,
like-
aka the plot device.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I thought this game was just like, just have fun.
No,
like, with these
basically
individual
it's supposed to be an immortal, malevolent like entity. Hence, it's called the Entity.
Manifesting is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it manifests the killers, and there's some that are created from the game, like that are like game exclusive.
Like
But then you have-
original characters.
Yeah, but then you have like Michael Myers, you have Freddy Krueger, they have Ghostface. Which actually, for Ghostface, I didn't realize until I read up on it. They had to create their own iteration of Ghostface from the others because all the others, copying licenses and stuff
Yeah.
for all that. Also, Pinhead from the Hellraiser. But yeah, they just pull all sorts of different.
I think like plugging our Stranger Things review. I think they have the Demogorgon.
Yes, they do.
Did you say Jigsaw?
They don't have. They did have a Jigsaw.
Spoiler: in the Saw movies, there are multiple Jigsaw killers. So one of them was, spoiler, Amanda Young. So she is particularly the one with the pig head mask and everything like that.
Yeah, there's a killer called the Pig. It's Amanda Young. She's from the Jigsaw movies.
Leatherface is in this.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think.
Most of the popular killers you can think of.
All except Jason, because they could not get the rights to him, and also he had his own video game.
Yes.
He had his own Friday. He had his own Friday the 13th.
Which
Friday
is
the 13th.
almost the exact same styling as this game.
It is, but
Except it's just Jason.
it's
Correct.
just Jason, and also there's more characters. Like there's more people you play as. So like I know in Dead by Daylight, I think it's 4
4 to
victims, and then there's 1 killer. But the victims really can't do anything against the killer, or like they can't like go up and attack him. Like I know in Friday the 13th, you can fight Jason, but it's really more you hit him, he gets stunned, you run away.
I mean, you can do that in Dead by Daylight. There is the flashlight that can stun them. I think actually it's the only thing that can work against the killer.
Yeah.
Also, there's like some beginning stuff where like the cloak, where like the mist is heavier, so the killer.
Yeah.
Well, that works against the survivors too because you can't see as far, but neither can the killer.
But like certain perks will allow you to like be able to see farther. Some I know there's some gimmicks again is like depending on how you set up your character, you can set up your character to be more of a healer, or you can set up your character to be more of an engineer, or you could be the person that says, I'm not helping anybody out, I'm just here to survive. I'm going to run and just try to survive as fast as I can, because there's different gimmicks in the game where you can like
or you can be the person who runs around the killer.
Yeah.
Because I have friends who will run up to the killer and juke them like 100 times before they end up actually getting hit all 3 times.
I had some really fun experiences with this game. I bought Michael Myers because I was like, he's one of my favorites. So I was like, I want to have fun with my friends and actually pay for Michael Myers. But we played on like a private server. So when you play like private, you have all the perks.
Yes.
You don't have to like grind it. You can just play like the ultimate version. So I was like, I added certain perks where like Michael's gimmick is, since in the movies he's known to be kind of a stalker. What he does, his gimmick is if he stares at you and just stands there, you can't move, but if you just stand there, you can level up your character to then just be like one hit kill. You don't have to put them on the hook.
Yeah.
So what happened was I scared the shit out of my friend Natra so bad, he had to basically be like, hold on, because I just appeared right behind him. He wasn't paying attention, and I was just like Michael, just staring at him. And he just like turned around, and he was just like, ah! And then
and Ghostface has a similar thing where if he's like kind of walking, you can't hear his footsteps, and also the heartbeat goes away. Because when the killer gets near you, the heartbeat gets faster, and you can kind of hear their footsteps. I think I'm pretty sure it's with Ghostface. He has a perk where that goes away for a certain amount of time. Like, you don't have that. You only have visual. And, you know, if you're looking down at that generator, and you're looking to get on time so that way you don't blow up the generator, you can't look for him. You can't look for this guy.
But going back, because he was like, give me a minute. I was like, all right. So I just gained up my meter using him only, and then I won the game because I basically had enough to be like one-shot everybody, and they were like, pay to win. I was like, no, you just weren't playing the game right. I just played the game right. I know how to play. They would never let me play Michael again or the killer ever again, because they were just like, yeah, no, we don't want that happening again.
Yeah, and that was just luck, which is kind of...
Yeah, it was luck. And it was more like I was too good at scaring people. And I don't know. I have a lot of fun with this game. I love the slasher video game genre where it's like the asymmetrical, where one person's the killer and then everybody else is like the victim. Especially with Friday the 13th. That video game was really fun doing that.
Also Friday the 13th also has in-game voice chat, and it's localized.
That is so
Which
fun.
is something Dead by Daylight doesn't have, I believe. They might have added it recently. I haven't played in a little bit. But, yeah, Friday the
Because
13th
Jason,
does.
like the people who plays Jason, also could talk, and they can have a lot of fun with that, with like funny voices, giving this big burly killer
like a squeaky tiny voice that you'd
squeaky
expect
tiny voice,
for
or they just put on like the
voice
audio
changer.
scrambler. Yeah, that shit is so funny. Like in both games, there's multiple ways to win. I know in Dead by Daylight, it's mostly fix the generators and then the doors will open, but they take a while and they can also have chances of like breaking or blowing up.
Yeah. So with the generators, basically, when you're fixing it, you have to stay there, and occasionally you get a skill check, which basically there's a line going around in a circle, and you have to, within a certain area, hit the space bar in order to get it to count. There's like one where it's just like good, and then you have excellent, and that's a little tinier, because obviously, you have to have really good timing. But if you don't get it within that area, if you get it out or you miss it, it blows up, resets the progress on the generator, so you have to fucking run away, because the killers...
it alerts the killer like there's someone over there, and they go run after you.
And then once you have 4 of the generators on, you have to go run to the gate, and you have to hold it down for like a good 10 seconds in order to get it to start opening. And it takes like 15-20 seconds to actually open. So you have to avoid the killer. There is one where if you are the last person alive...
Oh, the hatch?
Yes, you can find the hatch, as long as you also have to have a key, I think.
I think it just opens if you're the last one.
Yeah, but if the killer finds it before you, they can close it, and that's when you need the key.
Yeah, then that's...
Yeah, so...
I know for Friday the 13th, there's multiple ways. There's the one where you have to fuel up the car, and you can drive off. There's the one where if you get on a boat, you can swim away. Or if you just, like, survive the time limit, you win, because the Jason was not working. But I know as the time limit goes on, Jason starts to get more and more abilities. That way he can just, like... In that game, it's such a huge map. It's a bigger map than Dead by Daylight, so he will be able to teleport around the map or do this weird Evil Dead style zoom, like record scratching thing where he can just then be right in front of you and he'll hit you. And I also know there's a really complicated way to kill Jason, but you have to do a bunch of really small things, like you have to call Tommy Jarvis. You then have to go get someone you have to have a girl character put on his mom's sweater. You have to then hit his mask off, take the mask with you, get a machete, and then you can kill him. Like, that's the only way you can kill Michael. You have to do all these small little things. It's a lot of work, and it can easily fuck up, but if you can do it, you can win the game just by killing Jason. Yeah, I don't know. I love, and I believe the creators of the Friday the 13th video game are doing 2 other movie-based horror video games. One is the Texas Chainsaw game, and the one I'm really looking forward to is the Killer Clowns from Outer Space one.
Oh my
that
god.
Shit looks so fun. Killer Clowns is like one of those, it's not even a franchise, it's just one really fun movie that like I want to see more of, but like there's no, the rights are in a weird area, and also the creators behind it have no money to really make another one, but they're just like, it's fun. But so I love the idea that they're like, let's just make it a video game. And like, yeah, I would love to like play as a clown killing my friends. That sounded weird.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I mean, I don't think there is a clown character in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Fuck, who?
I forgot the name of it, but there is a clown.
I know there's...
I think it's like a big fat one. I don't know. Like, I haven't played... I stopped playing Dead by Daylight after a bit because of my friends just kind of getting bored of the game because
it's definitely a play with your friends that would be a fun kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely, if you have a group of friends, unless you want to get competitive, then you can go into random lobbies.
Yeah.
And even then, like...
That's not that fun, though, because you just get a lot of people who are, like, too serious about it.
Teamwork games are really hard to make teamwork work if not everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, like, I feel like all these games really have this fun role-playing aspect where if you all are huge horror fans, you all kind of get into character of who you're playing as.
Or
so, like,
even
if you're playing as,
even
like...
if you're just all good friends, you will work together really well to play against, like, the... It's kind of like the zombie versus humans trope, too, where it's like, Left 4 Dead had that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Different
yeah,
episode,
yeah.
but it's like zombies versus humans, and that was really fun because it was
Or
like
even Call of Duty for that. Call of
Right,
Duty Zombies
right,
for
right.
that matter, where you're like, okay, do this, do this, do
yeah,
this.
and just playing with your friends just really makes you like
Yeah.
kind of get into this teamwork mindset that makes the game really fun because it's based around that core concept that you're all working together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'll open this up to the room because we talked about so many different slashers today, and we're ending off with video games. What, continuing on like the Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, and also Killer Clowns, what is like a slasher movie franchise you would want to see adapted into a video game that would be kind of fun? I think for me, I would really like to see maybe a Chucky one would be really fun.
See,
Oh yeah, you have like tiny little Chucky chasing after you on a tricycle.
I would say Scream.
Oh, wait, does he
Maybe
have-
like
No,
a
he's not the
whodunit
tricycle one.
kind of game, like a
That's fun.
something like,
like
a
Clue Scream Edition?
Or
Or
like
something.
Trouble in Terrace Town. I think it'd be fun if it's like
I don't
you
want to be
or-
that guy,
Uh-huh.
but the Who's Done It genre won't be remade for horror games because Among Us exists.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like you could
Among
just do like
Us
a
is
Scream-
the like quintessential Who's Done It mixed with like Mafia Werewolf, whatever your version is.
Yeah.
Shit. Among
Both
Us is kind of like
together
a
are
slasher.
put
We could
there.
talk about it.
Like, I mean,
Oh yeah, Among Us.
you slash them when they're trying to do tasks,
Yeah.
and like you're the hidden killer,
Uh-huh.
and you have to bluff your way out. It's literally Mafia and Werewolf, but an interactive slasher type
Mhm.
approach to it,
Does
and
anybody
it's
here
exploded in popularity.
who here has played Among Us and please say vocalize it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
we all
have. Okay.
Yes.
Do any of you have really fun like stories about Among Us?
Well, okay, so one time I was playing, and like when you're playing with your friends, sometimes you do troll because it's funny. And so like I'd be playing with my friends on FaceTime, and I'd be like, guys, I am the killer, and please, I just need this win. And they're like, yeah, whatever, like I don't care, because it's a game, right? Like it's not.
You think this is a game?
Sure, it's cheating, but you
No.
know when you're.
My friends don't play around like they do. Is they like at the time a couple of my friends were dating, so if one of them was the killer, they would work together. Like if one of them was a crewmate, they would like intentionally try to like
Yeah.
Isolate people.
isolate people and like lie to like, oh yeah, I saw him do this.
Just like
I-
Icky Grandpa.
yes,
Of course.
bro.
But-
This is the one game where I legit was like wanting to like throw my like phone
Because you know.
because I was so mad at my friends
Well,
at some
so
points
This
because
one
I
guy,
hate lying.
he was playing with us and we didn't know him. He was some random guy and he was like, I know you guys are cheating. And we were like, and so what if we are? And he got so pissed that he would leave the game and rejoin so fast that we couldn't start the game because of him, and we couldn't block him because he wasn't in it long enough. So we were stuck there for like 5 minutes with this fucker just joining and then leaving and then joining and leaving. And I'm like, you are so petty. You're spending more time trying to upset us than just actually playing the game.
Yeah.
I have not played a lot of Among Us, but I have played a lot of Werewolf / Mafia, the
Oh,
card
okay.
version
We shall play
of Among
yes.
Us. And I do have a funny story about that one. We had like 20 people and we were at a big convention, so we had a bunch of random people in this game. And we played a version of it where there's like an expanded category of roles. So there's like the wolf cub. If you kill the wolf cub, the wolves get an extra kill because it's werewolf. So like if the wolf cub gets killed, the wolves gets to kill an additional person that night. So people just couldn't get it through their heads how the wolf cub worked. Like it just didn't make sense to them. I simply clarified what the wolf did, and the whole group killed me before the game even started.
Yeah.
The first thing didn't even get through, and they had already lynched me. And just because I had clarified the rules and the roles. And it just happened that I was a werewolf, but I did it for their benefit. I literally explained not to kill it. I'm like, don't kill the wolf cub. It helps the wolves. Me being a wolf. So I made it harder on myself, and they still just said, you die. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Werewolf is so much fun to play if you have a group of friends that is both A, really good at gaslighting, B, really good at lying, and C, loves to start just shit. You should look into those games in general. There's a electronic version for $5 on Steam for Mafia that you can play.
Oh,
And
that's
that's
expensive.
the same thing. Super good. Great game.
Had a lot of fun talking about slasher movies and video games. I can't believe we actually managed to squeeze in Among Us into this. Now that we're going to actually get views. We're going to have Kris. Well, okay, does anybody here have anything they want to plug real quick?
I mean, I could plug my show. Okay. Yeah, listen to Today in History every Tuesday from 3:30 to 4:30. Nora and I also have a show that is to be determined on an air date where we read books. And our first episode, we read spooky books. It's called Read Wave. Read the Wave?
Read the way.
Read the Wave!
I don't have
Stab me
anything
if you
directly
don't.
to plug for myself, but definitely look through some of these episodes if you want great content to just generally maybe find new movies, new obscure films, especially the foreign film sections we talked about. A lot
Watch
of people
Evil.
tend to miss those. Yeah.
God damn it,
Yeah.
Nora. Thank you for listening to the Graveyard Shift throughout the month. We're going to have one more special episode, which is to be determined. If you're listening to this on Wave Radio, please check out all the shows that we're going to have and the shows that are still to be determined. If you're listening to this on my YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, please help support us by subscribing to our channel. And yeah, I hope you all had a great time this month talking horror movies with us. And yeah, I hope to do this more in the future. Yeah, I hope you all have a good day.